Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Patrick Flynn, the Hormone Whisperer. So glad you could join us today on Living Hormoniously, our wonderful series of covering all things hormone, both for men and women. Obviously, you know, the majority of people that watch this, or even it applies to as women, because we cover all hormones that way. And so it's great for both you, male and women, to watch this show on a regular basis, because it gives you great insight that you can't usually find anywhere else. And because like Today we actually are continuing our series on the estrogens that we've done over the last couple weeks that way. And now we're moving into something that I believe that's really not that well known. And it's known in certain worlds in different areas, but not how, for example, it should be looked at today. So as you know me, I always like to throw some catchy titles on there. So like today, our major hormone is estriol. For you guys that maybe have not tuned in and watched all of the series so far, if today's your first time actually popping in, I've been covering all of the anabolic hormones, and it might take me 6 months to cover all of them with my travels and things that we do that way. But I'm always giving you insight on these hormones and why today, medically, they're so lost in translation that way. And today's a perfect one to show up that way. But estriol is one of the major 3 estrogens of a woman that way. But actually, there's more than 3. So that's why a lot of people have never really measured this one, because clinically, medicine and their thinking doesn't know really what to do with it much. And so therefore, it's really not that much important to them, okay? And then it's gotten some, bad press as of lately, which I want to say this. If you watch any of my series or anything that I talk about, you'll actually hear a lot of doctors, natural practitioners, nutritionists and stuff like that say that there's good and bad estrogens. That's not really true. There's no such thing as good and bad estrogens. It's just that if the estrogens get too high, there's ones that actually can cause and start to trigger, cancers and things like that. It's not bad, because if you didn't have it, there'd be a lot of host of other problems that exist that way. So what they really should say is not good and bad estrogens. It's, is your levels normal? Okay, and so I'm going to show you, for example, which I've showed you for the last couple of shows, how's the best way to measure them and see them that way. So before we get started on this beautiful hormone called estradiol, and the title for today is I Am Not So Weak. And the reason why is because it's actually listed in the medical world, in the hormonal world, as the weakest estrogen. They say that because they don't really understand its major role. We're going to learn that today. But before we get started, I want to say hi to everybody and some of that. Oh my goodness, lots of you guys watching and jumping on right now in this middle of the day here. Hello everybody. Hello Danny, Courtney, Natasha, thanks for jumping on. Dr. Don, Nancy's, my fancy Nancy Gruzy's on here right now. Jade, nice to see you. Heather, Stephanie, Dawn. Hey guys, thank you guys for always liking. Hey there, Paul, Janelle Marie, Jesse, nice to see you. Elizabeth, Jill, thank you for always popping on. Thank you for your comments there. Yes, as people are consistently posting, 1 month to Hawaii. That is very true. We actually have our drawing on April 10th for it that way. So once again, just by you guys being on here live today, yeah, I know you can't see it because this is our studio. The box is sitting right over there. Just by you jumping on live today. Now, once again, you'll get entered in drawing. If you want to get entered twice today, let me know where you're from. I love knowing where people are from, because as you see as I see my audience there. Hello, Stacy Beach. Once again, yes, if you have seen my past shows, Stacy had a funny story that way. I share a lot that way. So hello, Stacy. Thanks for watching. So let's start here. Let's go back to estriol. Now let's kind of recap a little bit to understand that way. A lot of times, for example, doctors will actually measure one of the hormones, and that's that major hormone estradiol when it comes to estrogen levels that way. It's the most well-known because it actually plays a significant role of even a young lady starting to cycle that way. But it's not the only estrogen. There's multiple ones, okay? So as you, for example, look the ones that we are covering, your estrogens, once again, estrogen is a term for multiple very chemically similar hormones. All right, so let me say it again. It's a term for multiple very chemically similar hormones that way. They're all listed. Now today, obviously, we actually are going to cover estriol. Estriol in the medical term, they call it E3, just like estradiol is E2 and estrone is E1. Once again, they actually classify it as the third estrogen because they say it's the weakest form. But you want something, it's not so weak. That's what I want people to understand. But the reason why they list it as weak, and here's why, is because they say, well, since it's so weak, it doesn't really cause much metastasis to cells and can contribute to breast cancer. I agree with that, but it doesn't make it weak. okay? It just has a different role than the rest of the estrogen levels do, because if several of these actually get elevated, it will do what? They can actually cause cancer. They can trigger the breast, they can trigger the ovaries, they can trigger the uterus, they can trigger the cervix that way, and you can metastasize into cancers that way. But just because it has different properties doesn't make it a weak estrogen. It's just that what they do in today's world, they demonize estrogen so much because they are the biggest contributor to certain cancers that way if they're elevated. See, that's when people say, Doc, this is a bad estrogen. There's no such thing as bad estrogen. It's just that if the estrogen is normal, it's perfect for that one's body. If it's abnormal, yes, that's where you can say it might be a little bit bad. But it's not bad because even have it, there'd be a lot of health problems without it that way. So it gets very little credit for its major role. But look over here. It increases in pregnant women dramatically. Actually, most of the estrogen levels during pregnancy drop significantly. One of our nurses, Nicole, as you guys know, she's actually pregnant. If I were to measure her estriol levels right now, they would be actually dramatically high. They used to actually use this in pregnancy tests before they really started doing other testing hormonally to see if a woman was pregnant, because estriol does elevate very quickly in the urine that way to make it actually very easily measurable that way. So that it actually skyrockets. So I hear a lot of practitioners say estrogens drop dramatically during pregnancy. Well, that's not true. Certain levels drop dramatically during pregnancy. Estriol skyrockets like crazy during that. And if it doesn't, women will actually end up with a lot of actually mood problems that way. Okay, if this level actually gets, fluctuates, this is actually one of the major hormones that can actually change and alter actually morning sickness that way. That's why I kind of, when I see a woman go through morning sickness, I'm always watching their estrogen levels that way. The estriol to be, in particular that way, because once again, that gets out of control. Sometimes you can have morning sickness over the course of your whole pregnancy, which would be kind of tough, okay? So once again, these are all of the major estrogen levels that we're covering that way. Today's estriol, we ought to cover these in the last shows. And over the next week, you'll actually start seeing the other ones that were covered during the labs. So it's going to be kind of neat. So let's start here. As you know, it gets very little credit because they consider it the weakest estrogen. What I mean by medicine that way is because when they're looking for diseases and pathologies and cancers, they don't really look at estriol that much, number one, because it doesn't have a high metastasizing form. It actually does really good at causing and keeping the breast tissue, keeping a woman's skin. It does almost the exact same functions of actually the rest of the estrogens does. It actually maintains most of the sex organs that way, the ovaries, the uterus, the breast tissue that way. But what happens is it actually does things at a slower pace. So if they really want to say it's not weaker, it actually just doesn't cause the amount of change in the tissue as quickly as the other thing does. That's why if you ever look, for example, the reason why HRT today is actually frowned upon so much, you're going to see that most HRT done synthetically for women, when they do use horse hormone and other synthetic chemicals, actually do not mimic estriol. It mimics estradiol or esterone, all right? And that's why they'll actually stick those in there. But it's really interesting. In the bioidentical world, once again, estriol is actually one of the major bioidentical things they're doing, because they're extracting the majority of it from plants that way. So that's why in the bioidentical world, which once again, I know I get this question a lot, do bioidenticals have some major uses? Yes, they do. I use them all the time when needed. Okay, when needed. We're going to cover that, not in this show, but in a couple shows down the road. We're going to cover when bioidenticals are needed that way. A lot of women, for example, use them because they're so hormonally depleted and move to a bioidentical and don't realize they can cause some major problems because they still have their ovaries in there. Once again, that's a whole show by itself. So I don't want to, go too much in detail. Otherwise, we'll be like, oh my goodness, we'll have 100 questions on that, Nancy, alone. So, anyways. Okay, Nancy. Broadcast interrupted. Are we still going good? Yep. Okay, good. Perfect. Perfect. Because I'm like, I want to say hi to everybody, and guess what happens? Oh, nobody's there.
That's so good. They're there.
All right, so hi, guys. I want to pop back on here to say hello. So hang in there with me. Actually, here's what we'll do, Nancy. We'll leave it up to you here. You can, I'll have Nancy turn on there as we do our recording here. So number two. So number one, just remember, it gets very little credit for what it does because, once again, in the world of diseases today, it means very little. That's why they actually don't really focus on it that much. But the one thing is this. The reason why it needs to be focused on, because it's considered one of the major 3 hormones when it comes to estrogen levels that way. But here's one thing. They measure it totally wrong, okay? Now, for example, by far, here's one thing about estriol. Estriol actually cycles in and out of the bloodstream very quickly, because a lot of it actually is dumped out within the urine. Blood you can measure, and I have no problem measuring in blood, but it's not that great of a representation of how estriol levels really are, okay? Because very few actually, a very little amount of estriol is in the blood unless you catch that, because hormones are released, once again, in spurts that way. Well, what happens is a lot of this hormone is actually converted within the liver, which we're going to get to, and then what happens is this. That's why the best way to measure this is in the urine. So let me go back to this. This is one thing I wanted to cover dramatically. If you think about this, here's the part that frustrates me. Here's the part that actually sometimes gets doctors very frustrated with me. And no joke, today I had a medical physician come and check us out that way, just because, once again, I said to her, and she's gotten into the whole natural realm that way, and I said to her, I said, listen, I said, how often, are you really doing combination testing with women? And I know she kind of looked at me weird, but gotta remember, that's why I tell people when they say no one's really been measured properly. You want to measure blood hormones. There's certain ones that significantly only really show up in the blood quite well, but there's some, for example, that dramatically do not doesn't really show up well in other testing that way. Even though they do measure estriol in the blood, the most significant way to measure it is in the urine, by far. Not saliva, not blood. You need the urine in there. And once again, the reason why that's so important is because, as you can see here alone, what, Nancy? Give me my phone so I can interrupt you. Nah, she can interrupt. Thank you, Nancy. One thing that's really important to notice, that's why you see the urine test here that way. You can actually, the major reason why you want to actually get it measured in the urine, you can see what's really happening in relationship to the other hormones. Because once again, unless you hit it at the perfect timing, estriol has a half-life in the blood for like 45 minutes to an hour maximum. So if you don't get it at the appropriate time, a lot of times you'll actually see estriol very low in the blood, and then a lot of people then start to go, okay, listen, we're going to need to do what? We're going to need to actually replace it either bioidentically or hormonally with the HRT, and there could be some problems. That's why it's the most important to be measured in the urine. Now why? And here's why. Because it actually comes on basis number 3. It's all about the liver and this hormone. It's all about the liver. I was reading something the other day as I was pulling some stats off for estriol that way, where people said, estriol is made by the ovaries. Actually, that's not really true, okay? Estriol is very similar to some of the other hormones we're gonna see at the, over the next couple weeks. They're metabolites. What does that mean? They metabolize, they break down in the liver and convert from one form to another. Ladies, let me tell you this. The majority of your hormones convert, metabolize, do all those things within the liver. That's why a woman has to be very, very, very careful when it comes to toxicity. That's why you have to be very careful of what you eat and filter through your liver. That's why you got to be very careful with your cosmetics. That's why you got to be very careful with anything that can be toxic for your body. Because if there's a burden on your liver, the same pathways that rid that from the body are the same pathways that convert your hormones. See, nice thing about this, guys, we make testosterone testicular-wise that way, and it hits right to our bloodstream, and we need very little conversion in our liver. We do need some, but we need very little conversion in our liver. So that's why, ladies, it's so important to you and why toxicity can affect you the most. Recently, for example, I just met a woman that had Hep B. I actually contracted it from a family member that way. But also, you see a lot of hepatitis. You see a lot of autoimmune hepatitis, where the liver is actually swollen, affected. It can change how it does it that way. It can change the whole function of the liver that way. Well, when women actually have hepatitis or things that happen to the liver, it actually, one of the major negative things that happen is hormonal imbalances, because they can't metabolize, they can't convert in that organ, and that's why it's really important. That's why it's even more important. You ever want to see a young lady actually start to reduce some of her PMS things that way, guess what happens? That's why if they start to increase their detox pathways, they have such a wonderful thing happen. Now, we're going to take a little commercial break here, because once again, my oldest daughter just showed up here. Come here, Faithers. Faithers, there's a ton of people on here saying hi. As you guys met my young lady, Trinity, come over here, honey. This is my oldest beautiful daughter, my Faith, and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool because, Faith, what test did you just complete 2 days ago?
Hormone test.
Her hormone test, okay? Once again, she's 14 years old, all right? I've tested her since she was a little girl. Not her hormones, only over the last couple of years that way. But it's kind of cool. We actually just did, honey, let's scoot out of the way for a second. We just did this test on her. Now, come back in here, hon. No joke. So this is my oldest daughter, okay? Guess what? She's a young lady. So therefore, her hormonal health is extremely important to me. And so her and her mother, once again, because their cycles are roughly the same, okay, it's kind of funny. There is a reason why that does happen hormonally that way. But once again, her and her mother just completed their hormone test. Why? Because once again, as I'm training you guys on this and teaching you this way, I do this for my girls. I do this for my wife. Yes, I'm a doctor. We do it for patients that way. But this test, I'm going to go over one of our staff members' tests that way, is so important for the vital aspect of her life. And that's why Faithers doesn't go through other things that young ladies that she is there with. Actually, get this. First thing that Faith, now you think your young ladies, you think your kids can't understand stuff? She goes to a very good school. But the health teacher today was actually teaching you what today?
About how salt isn't very good for you.
About how salt isn't very good for you. And it's really funny because tomorrow, in our quick tip for, now we have our doctors doing it from all over the country, Dr. Andrew McGuire, who's probably the most well-known salt expert I know now, he's absolutely amazing, is doing his thing on how salt is so beneficial. Ladies, you don't have salt, you can't produce good hormones. Your adrenals use so much, actually, salt, and then therefore, guess what happens? It's hard to produce some hormonal things. So, this is Faith. Everybody, here we go, guys. If you want to put a third, drawing in the Hawaii trip and stuff of that, Faith, where's your favorite place to go?
Kauai.
Kauai. We love Hawaii. So my daughters have been there. Actually, Faith's first time she actually went to Hawaii when she was 2 years. Oh, yeah, 2 years old. It was kind of cool. But anyways, this is my youngest daughter, Faith. Thanks, son. Love you. Okay, she's just gonna go sit back down and stuff of that. So
we're gonna say to get more entries.
To get more entries, right? Hi, Faith. There we go. Nancy actually got there. To get more entry, to get another entry in there, right? Hi, Faith. And trust me, just like Faith did that one day, or Trini did that one day, she'll probably respond back to you and say hi also. So, anyways, here we go. Look, they're always saying hi to you, Faith. So let's go back to this. So I'm not joking. That's my 14-year-old young woman, my beautiful bride, okay, Christy. Once again, these ladies just did tests and wrong. No joke. Faith actually plays sports. She's in volleyball. Of course, the hormone test is done over the course of the day. Is it inconvenient? Yes, I'm like, Faith, don't forget to do your tests and stuff like that. Yeah, it's actually, just understand. But it's that important for me to monitor my daughter's hormones, to monitor my wife's hormones. And remember, I have 3 other daughters coming down the pipe that way that eventually are going to be young, cyclic young ladies that way. So therefore, guess what? I'm going to test them just like I test everybody else. Now, once again, Faith does hate the blood test and stuff like that. She's like her daddy. She hates needles. So anyways, so it's all about her liver. It's one of the reasons why I don't like my daughters having toxic stuff. That's why we eat organically. That's why, for example, we test our foods, because those immune markers can actually hurt her liver, and why we don't want to have that happen that way, okay? So that's why, ladies, it's so important for estriol, because here's what happens. You produce those 2 other major hormones by your ovaries, by the adrenals, by the fat tissue, and then they go to the liver and they convert into the estriol that way. See, that's the thing. The majority, if not, I think 99% that they know of, is converted from the other estrogen forms. But what it does, it still has major properties, for example, for female hormone, even male hormone production that way, that if the liver is bad, ladies, this hormone is very hard to get high, okay? That's why, for example, if I even go back to this past test, her first 2 hormones were elevated. Her last hormone, estriol, was actually normal. That shouldn't be that way. Estriol can be eliminated in the urine very quickly because, once again, it can be put down into the tract to be eliminated because it won't cause metastasis or damage to those areas. The reason why it converts there, because it doesn't metastasize cells, it's weaker, so it can be eliminated. Because if some of these hormones, the estradiol and estrone, are actually elevated and eliminated, those cells actually create a lot of change in tissues that can cause cancers even in the GI tract or even in the bladder and things like that. So just understand that's why it's so important. The liver is very important. So ladies, let me give you a really quick tip here. If you want to see better hormones, understand detoxing. Understand the food that detox, understand the herbs that detox. Now, once again, you want to get tested to see how you should detox that way. But once again, you can actually just start to add some things in to help your liver produce more detoxification pathways, and you actually can get better balance in hormones. Ladies, it's very important for you to detox. It creates a lot of hormone balance. Now, as I said before, number 4, this is an end-stage hormone. Go back to almost everyone I talked about so far. No, everyone I talked about so far, they convert into other forms. Estriol, for example, is an end-stage hormone and now can be eliminated. And the reason why, like I said before, is when it actually goes onto receptors of our tissues, most of the estrogens cause high metastasis and changes in growth. That's what it means, okay? So with this being a weaker form, with this not causing a lot of cell splitting very quickly, if that gets put into the urine, if that gets put into the stool, you don't have the intestinal tract doing what? Metastasizing like crazy. It's why women that have extremely high hormones, what ends up happening is, yes, will they gain weight like crazy, but if it starts dumping them out in the intestinal tract, that's why the rate of polyps and intestinal cancers dramatically increase with women that actually have had breast cancer or women that have any other cancers. Because when women have breast cancer and even do something medically and destroy the cells, the hormones that cause the levels to get so high and change so much are still there. And they're still eliminating, and it's still going to affect other tissues, even though you changed the breast tissue, even though you did chemotherapy or radiation on those tissues, because once again, that's the job of the hormone. At least estriol is not as quick to do what? To increase cells, okay? And actually what they found out is this. If you have a cell that has a receptor on there, if estradiol goes on there, that cell splits very fast. If estriol goes on there, the splitting is extremely slow, and therefore, if estradiol is there, it binds to it, doesn't let it get there. So that's why if you notice, when actually you look at most of your bioidenticals given today, they actually are given even if a woman has had breast cancer, or even if I have a woman that has extremely high estrogen levels, I actually may even give her estriol to bind to the receptor sites so it slows things down. That's cool doctoring. Nobody does it that way because once again, they don't understand that like in this woman right here, those two that can cause cancer extremely move down really badly, guess what? You actually might want to have some weaker estrogen, one that isn't as strong to change the cells as others that way. Once again, that's just a little clinical pearl that way. So, Nancy, how's everybody doing saying hi to face?
Great.
Now, Becky asked a very good question, and I just saw it. No detoxing while breastfeeding. I'm waiting for my daughter to be done. Yeah, you got to be careful. Now, let me say this, Becky. Great question and great comment. You don't want to push certain parts of your liver at a high rate when you're detoxing. Because once again, especially if you've never done it before, but if you've actually detoxed a bunch, you can do it while you're breastfeeding. Okay? Now, once again, I'm just going to have a bunch of you women freak out about saying, my doctor said this, the doctor said, yes, I understand this. Okay? But think about this. The reason why, if you've never detoxed before and try to do it while you're pregnant, what you now do is all that burden you've had stored up in your body for a long time actually dumps into the breast milk, and then you give it to your child. But understand, guys, your body detoxes every day. You know why? Because Faith may eat perfect. We may not have anything toxic that way, but you're going to breathe in the air. You're going to actually have normal toxins on the inside that you produce as you produce new cells. So once again, if you've been doing good things for a long time, even when you are breastfeeding, you can actually do and actually take some detoxing-based things that way. You don't have to worry about a ton of burden jumping out one and jumping the breast milk. Because even if you eat perfectly and do everything right now normally, if you're breastfeeding, you're going to dump some of that stuff already. Okay, just by doing normal things, just by your liver working normally that way. That's why, for example, once again, I still think breast milk is the best thing on the planet. But if you're new to detoxing, don't do it while you're breastfeeding because you're just going to dump a ton of junk out at some time that way. Now, and once again, to end this part here, estradiol is not so weak, okay? It actually has a very different job. That's why, for example, if you've had hormones measured and never had a urine test, you can't really even assess the 3 major proper hormones that they that they do for estrogen, which is estradiol, estrone, and estriol. So once again, it's very good to get estradiol and estradiol and estrone by blood. You also can get that by the urine, okay? But it's really important to actually make sure that if someone does measure this hormone, they actually do have the urine test done. Most women, when I meet them, have never had a urine test done for their hormones. So therefore, I look at them and go, guess what? You may have tested some of them, but your testing is still incomplete, and that's where we thrive in that way. So Fancy Nancy, what do we have for questions?
Not a lot of questions yet.
Mm-hmm.
One of them from Megan Burnett. What age do you suggest starting these tests?
Okay, I suggest starting the test usually around a couple of years or a year before you can estimate someone might get their cycle. So I tell ladies today, I mean, I've had young ladies get their cycle as early as 8 years old. I wouldn't have started testing her at 6 because you would never expect it that way. I always say, starting around 12, 13 years old is very important, okay, to get that done. Because what they now do, and remember, you can start off even with some blood, do some urine that way, and start seeing where they're at, because once again, there are levels that a young lady that's not cyclic could have, just like a menopausal woman. There are different levels that way. So I would say start doing it around 12, 13, 14 years old at the latest, because once again, most young ladies now today start to cycle when they're 12, 13 years old, okay? And that's fine. I'd like to see it a little bit later, like see about 14 or if not later, and so that, but what happens, I would start, once again, probably measuring on 12, 13, or 14 years old, okay? I know. Trust me, guys. I kid you not. Nancy's like, everything going good? I said, absolutely, it's going good. But estriol, for example, doesn't have a lot of pizzazz to it that way. And so I knew during some of the next metabolites we're going to cover. Remember, I told you most of the hormones are kind of cool. There's some of them that are kind of boring. Now, they need to be measured because they have effect on the body that way. But sometimes it's hard to actually, really create some distinction. But if there's one major thing I want you to understand, it comes down to question number 2. And that's, get this, it's best measured in the urine. So if you ask a doctor what the 3 major estrogens are, which there's more than 3, they'll say estradiol, estrone, and estriol. And if they only measure the blood, what this now does is give you a very incomplete picture of the hormone levels that way. Because yes, it can show up in the blood. But the bad part is, for example, you have to hit it at the perfect time, and nobody really knows when it is. When I do my blood work, I still put estriol in there. I just compare it to the urine and things like that. So once again, it actually tells me, and once again, you say, Doc, if it doesn't have a lot of properties that do a lot of things, well, it does. It does affect the female tissue quite well. What it does tell me, though, is some of the major causal factors of why women hormone levels are off this way. Because like that woman you saw before, if the other 2 estrogen levels are really high and the other one's not, I know that the liver is having some problem to remove those hormones. And guess what? That's one of the major reasons why they're elevated. They might have an MTHFR gene. They might actually just be drinking soda and diet soda all the time. They may have some vaccine. They may have some liver disease that way that's contributing to their hormone problems. So really this is more investigative for us as doctors that way to actually really see what is causing women's hormones to be off the greatest that way. So that's why I said, Nancy, this one's kind of a fun one. I guess one of the greatest parts of the show is that my 14-year-old daughter is here. So, and she's always here. She just got adjusted. Who adjusted you today, Faith?
Mitch.
Dr. Mitch adjusted Faith today. We have wonderful docs here. Oh, which reminds me, Dr. Jason made me smile the other day because Monday he said, Patrick, because I was in Minneapolis here. Hello to everybody from Minneapolis that I actually got to speak to last night. Had a wonderful crowd. Got to speak at a company with Dr. Sean Ellenworth, amazing doctor over in the Bloomington area, Minneapolis, not far from the Mall of America. I stayed at the hotel by the Mall of America. I love that place and stuff. And then also too, then I got to do an inflammation talk last night for our office over there. And then Dr. Jason on Monday said, hey, Patrick, since you're doing the inflammation talk in Bloomington, I would love you to do the one here in Green Bay on the 10th, the same day of our drawing in for Hawaii. So idea is this. So remember, April 10th is the drawing here live on the Dr. Patrick Flynn Show at noon, okay? Have to be live to be present to win. Second of all, what happens is that night at 6 p.m., I will be doing the Wellness Way approach to inflammation. All right. Now, do I always throw a little bit of hormone stuff in there? Yeah, just a little sneak peek that way as always to give people a little understanding that way. But the idea is this. So I will be doing the inflammation talk April 10th here. Nancy, you can put the link. Please get your ticket on Eventbrite. The event is free. It's just that, once again, it's limited seating. We only really fit about 75 people in there. And as we checked yesterday, I think 25 people were already signed up. So tickets are going to go fast. So please, it's the talk that started everything. The Hormone Connection, for example, gets a lot of publicity. And actually, the Hormone Connection book is coming out soon, as you guys saw, if you guys follow me a little bit. But really what happens is the basis for understanding why the wellness way, or why, for example, how to get your body back to normal, how to actually choose what doctor to use and things like that, and who's the best person for your care. That's what the Wellness Way approach to inflammation is. It gives that foundation. The Hormone Connection Seminar, you'll learn the best about hormones, you'll learn the best about relationships, you'll learn a lot of great things, but it's not the basis. I tell people, I say, if you come to the Hormone Connection Seminar, you still have to go see our inflammation talk, because they're two different things. Obviously, they're related together, but they cover two different topics that way. So, April 10th, guess what? Drawing for Maui, April 10th, 6 p.m. here in Green Bay. We'll put the Eventbrite link there. Please get a ticket. Another thing. I just looked down at my desk and I got it right here. All right, before we get going. Just as I have my daughters, my wife, and everybody in my mother, once again, everybody. See, that's the big thing. Get tested. That's the biggest thing. People sometimes will do this. Doc, even just saying this, start to introduce some things to help your detox. Actually, you can test what you need. That's the cool thing. Not everybody's the same. So actually, once again, as staff member, look familiar? Staff member here just going over her test on there. And once again, kind of going through what were some of the things, and it was kind of nice. And what it helped me look at her and help figure out her body. See, that's the cool thing about it that way. And so now I know as a doc what direction of care to do. So I was sitting down with her and it was kind of neat. I was saying, hey, you might be going through this right now. And she's like, yep, I am. Now, how would I know that? Now, yes, she's been a staff member here. So therefore, I guess I get to see her on a regular basis. But the idea is this. The hormones are messengers. They make your body do physical and emotional things. See, that's the one thing. I would tell you this. I spoke to an amazing lady last night in Minneapolis. And a young lady, okay? And she came up to me and she's like, I'm so happy you came to Bloomington because I was scheduled for next week to get everything ripped out. And that breaks my heart. They wanted to rip her uterus out, wanted to rip her ovaries out, and she did too. Now, once again, let me explain why I understand why she wanted to. She's going through hell. She's young. Her hormones are all over the place. She's all over the place physically. She's all over the place emotionally that way. It's devastating for women that way. It's devastating when those hormone levels get off that way. So I understand why she wanted to. But then she realized there's some problems that happen with that. So she said, I want to come down and see the Hormone Whisperer. And she drove down from upper Minnesota to come. She drove about 3 hours down to come see us that way because the only option the doctors gave her were we can remove everything. Yeah, I understand, but at that age and stuff like that, without cancer, I didn't see any need for it that way. So it's kind of nice because she's going to have us take care of her, which is kind of nice. But I'm already picturing what her lab could be like. Will I know in detail? No. Dr. Sean will take care of her. We'll get her labs. They'll go through it in great detail. I'll give her a great option and show it that way. But I understand why she wants to get it ripped out. When those hormones go bad, ladies, you feel like crap. And I can see Fancy Nancy's got a question here for us.
It's right along the same lines. Why are docs recommending a hysterectomy after having breast removed from cancer in my late 30s?
Oh, it's very common. Okay, now remember, let's do this. It all comes down, what's her name? The answer. Sue. It all comes down to this, Sue. When doctors have a certain way of thinking about things. I've always said, what made the Wellness Way so special, what made me actually start to create this whole idea is I actually studied biochemistry and physiology and all things that what happened to my wife. And so therefore, I approached it, let me say again, I approached it from a different level of thinking and said, listen, the reason why my wife was going through these things, the reason why all these females were going through things had to be X, Y, Z, okay? So medicine has a certain way of thinking about hormones. And what they do is this. So they look and they go, well, those estrogen levels and all their things with breast cancer can cause metastasis cells. And so they remove the breast, but all those hormone levels in their mind don't get back to normal. So they see that when people stick with just that thinking, eventually they're going to have ovarian cancer, uterine cancer, and other things. So their idea of prevention, their idea of good care is let's take away those organs that can metastasize and be affected by those hormones. It's a different way of thinking. They're saying, we can't do anything for you, so let's rip it out and prevent you from getting cancer. And I'm saying, guess what? Don't do that. Actually, find out why they're so bad and what goes on, and let's get those back to normal so your ovaries and your uterus and all those things stay normal. Remember, there is no such thing as bad estrogens. People demonize them because if they're abnormally balanced, if they're out of range, it's going to do what it's programmed to do. Estrogens are messengers to create a lot of metastasis that way. That's why that breast cancer person, they can't get your estrogen levels back normal. The best they can do is they gave you an aromatase inhibiting medication that only alters the fat tissue. So they say their idea of prevention is rip it out. They've convinced movie stars, Angelina Jolie, you have the gene. I don't care if you have the gene. We all have genes that could make us do a lot of bad things, okay? But the idea is this. If those estrogen levels get high, the gene's going to respond to the way the estrogen told it to do that way. But if you keep those things normal, you don't have to freak out about it that way. And they get women scared. They get women scared so badly, it's actually just very tough. So, wonderful question. Love that. Nancy, we got any other questions?
You mentioned morning sickness. Is there anything that can be done to alleviate morning sickness? My friend is nearly 20 weeks and has tried everything.
Yes. Don't get pregnant again. Now, I know, actually, everybody, no joke, you couldn't hear it, but the whole staff on that side just started laughing. Here's what happens, is the estrogen levels, let's do this, guys. As the estrogen levels change, the tissues respond to the hormonal changes. That's why, literally, get this, guys. I got hate mail about an hour after I spoke yesterday because some woman didn't like my view of hormones and how it affects males and females. And it was kind of funny, so she complained, and I got a nice little email. It's kind of funny. I kind of laughed a little bit, okay? But here's what happens. Those hormones, this is why I bring this up. Those hormones actually change those tissues, and when you're pregnant, guess what happens? The physical changes, once again, obviously can't be controlled. They can't. Morning sickness, I hate that they call it morning sickness. Morning sickness isn't anything wrong. Morning sickness is because once the hormone is produced, the tissues will change accordingly that way. And for some women, man, they puke all 40 weeks and it's normal. Some women have no morning sickness and that's normal. It's how your tissues respond to that hormone level that way. Now, what I will tell you to do, here, I will give you a natural remedy. I will give you a natural remedy. Here we go. If a woman has actually a significant amount of morning sickness, she can get some good, pure calcium lactate powder, okay? And that will at least calm the tissue down so she isn't puking all the time. My wife did it. A lot of my patients do it that way. So once again, just find some good calcium lactate powder to help her manage that. It doesn't get rid of it. It takes a good edge off and they're not throwing up all the time and they don't feel like they're gonna just puke and have to curl up in a ball all the time that way. So, great thing, but morning sickness is as normal as the sun coming up tomorrow. So it's never gonna go away as far as some women. Some women will actually have a very devastating time with it. Some women have no tissue response that way. They said they don't mind the pregnancies then. What you got there, Fancy Nancy?
All right. How can you test for the MTHFR gene?
Oh, very simple. You'll see me and Dr. Jesse did a video on that way, but I'll tell you really simple. Go to 23andMe. 23andMe, you can even request MTHFR from any doctor, you're saying. But if you really want to do it simply, go to 23andMe, go to any lab. You can actually get a lot of home lab test kits that way. You can do what you want that way. It's a very good way of doing it that way. You can see, for example, if your COMT is off and things like that. Once again, that's actually on this hormone test too that way because it's a liver pathway. And once again, so it's really easy to do. Go to 23andMe, go to your doctor. It doesn't matter where you get it. I always try to tell people do some home testing that way then you don't have to depend on go through a doctor and argue with them to get it done that way. So 23andMe is a good way of getting the MTHFR tested. Any other things there, Nancy?
No, unless I'm missing any. I don't see any others.
Well, everybody, thank you. Hello, Samantha. Oh, my sister Kat's on. Hello. Sue, great question. Amy, hello. Amy, I think I got an email from you. I'll have to check it. Trust me, guys, I mean this nicely. I get so much email and so many messages. It's really funny. I get a ton of text messages. Even my doctors will be like, hey, doc, I haven't heard from you for a day or two, which is rare because I always try to call my docs on a regular basis that way. But I literally get so many text messages, emails. I promise you, I would get to them. That's why sometimes you'll see even on my Facebook, you'll send me a question, and Dr. Mitch or Dr. Jason or Dr. Greg or Jesse will respond to people because my Facebook gets so many questions because all the sick people from all over the world are asking questions, which we want to help. Okay, so always if you do send a question, always be patient. I promise to get to you. And I think, Amy, I saw your name come across there. So I will definitely respond as quickly as we can. So any other questions there, Nancy?
Samantha Burnett says she's tuning in late, so she's sorry if we answered this, but what can you do to increase your estriol levels?
Yeah, if your estriol levels are low, think about this. I will give you something that's really interesting. It usually shows, for example, if the other levels are normal and estriol levels are low, then guess what? There's a liver issue. Okay, so starting a detox process is really important. Now, if estradiol and estrone and estriol are low, it's not a liver problem. Okay, you're going to have some actually hormone output issues that way, and that's a whole different animal. See, that's the cool thing. It's a great question, Samantha, and the cool thing about that is it all depends on all the rest of them. Think about that. It depends on all the rest of the hormones. That's why measuring 1 or 2, guess what, doesn't give you a complete picture. But that's a great question that led to a great answer. Okay, any other questions?
Nope.
So everybody, my name is Dr. Patrick Flynn. Thank you for watching Living Hormonally. Once again, we'll continue our series for the weeks to come. I think we'll have a series next week, but I think that'll be gone for 2 weeks. We won't have a Living Hormonally series when Nancy and I and Ross and my wife and a bunch of other The Wellness Way people will be at Hawaii and stuff like that. So like I said, we're going to probably have 2 Living Hormonally over the next 4 weeks that way because we will have travels. And I won't have all my stuff to be able to do with you guys sitting in Hawaii, so we'll just do it that way. So once again, thank you guys for always watching. I appreciate it. Please do me a favor, share the information. Can you guys do me a big favor, though? Facebook is changing. Facebook is changing greatly. Do me a favor. If you're not on YouTube, do it, because YouTube is actually not changing. YouTube is actually doing things that way on a regular basis that way. All of our stuff goes up on YouTube. Go to Nancy, put our link to our YouTube channel. And if you actually, here we go, Nancy, anybody that subscribes to my YouTube channel will put your name into the drawing again. Because once again, everything lives up on YouTube. We have all of our videos there. That way you can watch the whole series there. But Facebook is changing all the time because once again, because of all the bad stuff out there and what people are doing. So some people don't get to see it. But do me a favor, like and share. Go to our YouTube channel. We're also going to start broadcasting this live from YouTube also. Okay, so we have this on a regular basis that way, so you'll be able to do it in multiple places that way. So anyways, thank you again so much for watching, everybody. We appreciate you on this beautiful Thursday watching it. If you guys are at home, enjoy the rest of your evening. If you're driving, thank you for listening. Watch this over again. And once again, I appreciate you always sharing and liking because this simple information can change the direction of somebody's life. Have a great day.